Well, the left in Canada are in complete meltdown mode these days over the possibility that one day that nasty, mean, evil Pierre Poilievre might become their prime minister. And between you and me, they're not doing a very good job at hiding it. The left-wing, Laurentian, legacy media types, you know the ones, they're back to their old tricks this week. Instead of attacking Pierre Poilievre, instead of attacking Poilievre's ideas, because they're unable to, it appears, what they're now doing is noting that there are too many white men at Poilievre's rallies. Yeah, that's it. There's just too many whites at Poilievre's rallies. We know that line of attack worked so well for them when they tried to do that against the Freedom Convoy.
What did it say, sorry? So it says, F your white nationalist agenda.
I am not a white. This is nothing to do about white. This is nothing to do with truckers. This is about freedom for all of Canadians.
Well, once again, just like they did during the Conservative leadership race, they're now going back to this, saying Poilievre is attracting too many white men. Tough to believe that that is where we're at these days, but it looks as though that's all they've got. Drop a like on the video, help us out by subscribing to the True North YouTube channel, and the comment question for the episode is this. With everything going on right now, with resignations left, right, and center, it appears, do you think Justin Trudeau is going to call an early election this year? Let me know in the comments, and let's get into it. In Canadian politics, there are many issues that two people can fall on opposite sides of, and nobody is technically right or wrong. They're debatable, but there are also undeniable realities. One of those realities is that Pierre Poilievre gets big crowds, and he gets those big crowds across the country, whether it's in a conservative stronghold or in a traditionally liberal area. That has been a big problem, however, for Laurentian left-wing legacy media reading types, who have done their absolute best to try and justify how it could be possible that Pierre Poilievre is getting such big turnout at his rallies. Now, as much as people want to try and downplay crowd size, to try and say that crowd size is not emblematic of real support, real electoral support, the reality is a large crowd is intimidating for an opposition. And a large, supportive, and very happy crowd is a lot better, well, than maybe this. So over the weekend, Pierre Poilievre held a rally in Windsor, Ontario, a traditionally blue-collar town, a Labour town, and look at the turnout of this rally. This is a serious crowd. As the Windsor Star reported, Poilievre rally draws a large crowd to Caboto Club. Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was center stage Saturday, surrounded by a large crowd for a town hall rally at the Caboto Club. The large crowd pressed shoulder to shoulder in an overcrowded room, cheered loudly throughout the rally. Some waved Canadian flags, some held up signs in support of Poilievre and against Trudeau and COVID-19 vaccinations. And then there was this paragraph that I thought was interesting. There were some people wearing obscenity-laden anti-Trudeau shirts or hats with American or Confederate flags and other extreme right-wing symbols such as Trump North. Which I find funny because I've been to a lot of these events, I've been to rallies, I've been to these protests. I've never actually seen a Trump North flag or hat. But anyway, I guess there are still some new things out there. But you can already see it, right? You can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to paint the image that Pierre Poilievre is attracting the small fringe minority that hold those unacceptable views and that they're too white, they're too nasty, and you can see exactly what the media is trying to do. Well, sure enough, that was exactly what took place on Twitter, as the Laurentian left-wing Twitterati took that message and completely embarrassed themselves, saying that there are too many white men at this rally, to try and justify what is clearly to them very intimidating. A large crowd of Canadians excited and galvanized around an opposition leader. They're now trying to demonize that crowd for being too white and too male. Well, Dean Blundell, a disgraced former radio host who now spends his days as a professional Twitter troll, took to Twitter and wrote this: "Every white person at a Poilievre event is there because they think #PP will protect their white privilege because they told them Justin Trudeau is taking it away. It's this easy to astroturf dumb white people with the education of a hammer." What do you really think about your fellow countrymen there, Dean? I wouldn't want you to be holding back at all. Michael Deatter, the cringeworthy cartoonist for the Washington Post, who always tries to paint Pierre Poilievre as some Donald Trump of Canada, he took to Twitter and wrote this: "He's got it locked up. If only white people are allowed to vote." And then this one from the Toronto Sun, of all places, wrote this: "Only if all women in Canada die first, friend." They can't attack Pierre Poilievre. They can't attack Pierre Poilievre's ideas right now. And frankly, it's getting pretty tough to defend the state of this country. So of course, what are they going to do? What are the Laurentian left-wing legacy media reading types going to do? Of course, they're going to do what they did during the Freedom Convoy, which worked out so well for them. Just look at this logic for a second. Darshan Maharaja, who I'm just going to assume is probably not white, wrote this. Out of genuine curiosity, in your opinion, what is the motivation for non-white people to attend Mr. Poilievre's events/rallies? And to show just how clear, succinct, and well thought through Dean Blundell's position on Pierre Poilievre's rallies is, he wrote this as justification for why a non-white person might support Pierre Poilievre. Confusion, ideological alignment, and gaslighting. Oh yeah, a non-white person would only find themselves at a Pierre Poilievre event because they're confused, because maybe their GPS took them on the wrong turn, and they decided, well, I'm just going to go into this event and see what happens. And it's definitely not because 67% of Canadians think the country is broken right now. The majority of Canadians think we're in a recession right now. It's definitely not that. It's just because these non-whites are confused. That's exactly it. So as we know, the legacy media first tried this act. They first tried the Poilievre supporters are too white and too male act back when Poilievre was running away with the Conservative leadership race. They could see then that Pierre Poilievre was going to be a political problem for Justin Trudeau. So what they immediately did was try to paint the narrative that Pierre Poilievre is really just dog whistling to racist whites. So when I went to a Pierre Poilievre rally during the Conservative leadership race a few months ago, I asked an Asian Canadian what he thought of the legacy media trying to paint Poilievre's rallies as some sort of glorified white nationalist get-together.
Well, I mean, noted white person here, obviously supports Pierre Poilievre. I think it's nonsense. Prominent Sikh Conservative MPs Tim Uppal and Josh Rajpalan support him. LGBTQ MPs like Eric Duncan and Melissa Lansman endorse Pierre Poilievre. So to equate that his movement is just a bunch of white supremacists is just complete nonsense, and it's only going to hurt and divide the party. We need to come together and defeat Justin Trudeau whenever the next election is.
We're now in the second phase of the Twitterati and the media trying to paint Poilievre's rallies as a gathering of angry white men. But during that first phase, back in April, my colleague at True North, Rupa Subramanya, brilliantly put down this argument in her column in the National Post. This is reminiscent of the commentary on the Freedom Convoy, which similarly observed that many of those showing up to join the protest were white, implying a lack of diversity in the supporters of the convoy. The implied guilt by association is a classic tactic of the left. The objective is clearly to imply, if not state explicitly, that a gathering of mostly white folks is somehow racist or even white supremacist. The absurdity of this argument is easy to spot. If, for example, you attend classical music concerts in Canada, the majority of people in the audience tend to be white and middle-aged, with a smattering of younger people and people of color. Does this mean that the concert is therefore racist? The idea that the rightness of a cause is to be judged by the demographic makeup of those who appear to support it, a common assumption on the left, is itself racist. But if you really are a true believer in what Justin Trudeau says, if you really are one of those left-wing Laurentian legacy media reading types, look at these crowd sizes you're seeing from Pierre Poilievre. Seeing crowd sizes like this in Barrie, Ontario, for example, in Calgary, in Vancouver, in Cambridge, Ontario, and in Peterborough, it would really get to you. Add on top of that the reality that Poilievre can draw huge crowds in towns that Justin Trudeau would get heckled out of, just like he did in Hamilton, it would really freak you out. And this meltdown that we're seeing from left-wingers in Canada comes on the heels of a string of resignations which does not look good for Justin Trudeau. As we know, last month, New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern abruptly announced her resignation. Last Friday, Toronto Mayor John Tory announced his plans to resign. And yesterday, RCMP Commissioner Brenda Lucki abruptly resigned as well. With this string of resignations, including the resignation of Scotland's woke First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, a true believer in Justin Trudeau's woke ideology, Patrick O'Flynn of The Telegraph in the UK wrote this. First, Jacinda Ardern. Now Nicola Sturgeon. Justin Trudeau will be next, he writes. I foresaw the Scottish National Party leader's fall, and the next victim of go woke, go broke is already on the conveyor belt to their political demise. After Ardern and Sturgeon, the fickle finger of fate would seem now to be pointing at the leader of the selfie-taking summit rat pack himself, Canada's ultra-woke Justin Trudeau. And so there we have it. are things moving in the direction of a Justin Trudeau resignation? Definitely something to consider, as it appears journalists across the pond are starting to place their bets. Ratio of the week time, we're going back to an old winner. If you've been watching the show for quite a while, you will know that Jagmeet Singh is a repeat winner of the Ratio of the Week award. The reality is that Jagmeet Singh gets ratioed on pretty much every single tweet he puts out, so it's not very difficult for us, but we do try and make the competition a bit more tough, so he doesn't always win, but this one is really deserving. Check it out. While Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre argued about who's causing inflation, working families went hungry and turned to food banks in record numbers. Loblaws made $1.5 billion in profits, $38 million per week, $224,425.55 per hour, $62.35 per second. Now I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that none of you watching are math savants, so you might not have caught Jagmeet Singh's little calculation error there. But sure enough, Twitter managed to catch it, and they slapped a fact check on Jagmeet Singh's tweet because it turns out his little math exercise there was a bit off. So take a look at this. Twitter had to add a context bar and correct the math for Jagmeet Singh. How embarrassing, how pathetic is that? This post contains math errors, Twitter writes. It's not $38 million a week, as Jagmeet Singh writes. What it really is $28 million a week. It's not $224,000 per hour, as Jagmeet Singh writes. What it really is $171,000 an hour. And it's not $62 a second, it's actually $47 a second. Not to say that the point you're trying to make isn't valid, although I will argue that Pierre Poilievre is not part of the problem. At least try and make sure the math is right. Otherwise, you just look like you have no idea what you're talking about. Well, Jagmeet Singh got ratioed for this, as you could have guessed. He is the winner of the prize. 1,774 replies to 1,202 likes. Sarah Fisher, the director of communications for the Conservative Party, got in on Jagmeet Singh, writing this: while the leader of the official opposition has been telling the Trudeau Liberals to cut back their wasteful and inflation-inducing spending, you've been propping up that government and doubling down on the call for more inflationary spending. Don't delude yourself. The parody account 222 Minutes, who's quite a good follow, wrote this on Jagmeet Singh's post: the NDP is not a serious party, and just showed the fact that his numbers were just a little bit off. And this comment that got quite a few likes: why are you going after private businesses that provide jobs? Seriously, get a life somewhere else. All right, that's going to do it for us this week on the show. I'll catch you tomorrow on Fake News Friday. My name is Harrison Faulkner, and this is Ratio.